Well, welcome in, everybody. Now, have the Ducks caught up to the Kings this season? New coaches in Seattle and Vancouver? And what do the Oilers have left in the tank? We're talking about all of that and more from the Pacific Division right now. Let's get after it, everybody. Here are my Pacific Division predictions for this NHL upcoming season. Coming in at number 8, we do have the Seattle Kraken. Finished last year in 7th place, 35 wins, 41 losses, 6 OTLs for 76 points. Did not impress me all that much with their July 1st. Just not a lot of roster changes, not enough improvements to a team that was fairly deficient coming back from a year ago. They do pick up Ryan Lindgren, probably their biggest free agent. And they do trade for Frederick Gaudreau, 18 points, 19 assists for 37 points with Minnesota last season. They do go into the draft. They do get Jake O'Brien, a nice young center. I know someone that was high on the Boston Bruins list. They do re-sign Kakko as well. Not a bad thing there. He seemed to have an emergence, a change of scenery from New York. Of course, they do bring in a new head coach, Lambert. Lane has 127 games coached in his career, 61, 46, and 20, all with the New York Islanders. That's a .559 points percentage. Third coach, in a very short span for the Seattle Kraken. I'm not convinced that many or any of these changes are going to make any difference. Go back to last year, they were 16th in goals for at 245 and 24th in goals against at 262. I don't see anything on their roster right now that changes any of those metrics for me. And I do think really a bigger problem is that there's other teams in the Pacific Division that we're going to talk about that I think are more on the rise in Seattle. I think they're going to get past a little bit here this year. And of course, there's still all the rumors about Jared McCann potentially being on the block. He's such an important player to them. So I do have them at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have got the San Jose Sharks. Finished last year in 8th place, so I do have them jumping over Seattle this season. Couldn't have gone any worse. 20 wins, 50 losses, 12 points, 52 points for the Sharks. I do feel like, though, a lot of young guys on this team should take another step forward this year. And listen, they were busy on July 1, adding Orlov and Klingberg to the defense, getting Skinner on the ice as a forward, a guy that can still put the puck in the net. And similar to last year, right? They added a few depth pieces a year ago. They kind of did the same thing this year. Also trading for Ryan Reeves. Listen, not my favorite guy, but can be an enforcer out there and somebody that can certainly help protect some of these young guys. Macklin Celebrini, year 2. Of course, he played 70 games a year ago, 25 goals, 38 assists for 63 points. Just a phenomenally great first season. I'm putting him at a point per game this year. I think he's got at least 82 in him. I'm going to say, 35 and 47 or 35 and 50 type of season for him. I think he's just on the rise and should be one of the most dynamic players here over the next number of years. Last season, again, pretty pitiful, 208 goals for. That was last in the league, and 310 allowed, also dead last. Of course, both of those metrics have to improve, and I think they will. I think they'll have some small improvement. They do have Askarov in net. Is he really the number one, goalie for them? He's, of course, the guy that came over from the Nashville Predators there a couple years ago. Critical year, I think, for him and for the organization to really find out, is he your franchise netminder? I think he's got all the potential for it. We just have to see it. And I think as that defense hopefully has improved, and I think with what they've done in the offseason, it has improved. Of course, you can only go up from the bottom, so I do expect some improvements. I do think they're on the rise. And I do think they're probably going to narrow that points gap. I think a 10-win improvement, at least for this San Jose team, is very, very doable. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is where I kind of started to struggle. But coming in at number 6, the Calgary Flames. 4th place a year ago, 41, 27, and 14, 96 points. Of course, they just missed the playoffs by that tiebreaker with the St. Louis Blues. A surprise season, I think, last year. I don't think much was expected. I don't think even the team really expected to be that close to the playoffs. I certainly didn't have them that high a year ago. Goals for was a problem, though. 220 on the year. That was 29th. And they gave up 236 more middle of the pack, 15th in the league. Have they done enough to fix those goal scoring woes? Not very active July 1. They are sitting, though, on over $50 million of cap space. So questioning, how they're going to put more of those pucks in the net this year. Do they have some young guys that are going to emerge, like Coronado, guys like that? Can they step up a little bit? Listen, with all that money, you got a guy like Jack Roslovic out there. I know I've been talking about Roslovic a lot lately. Not really sure why he hasn't been signed, but I think he could be a very good middle forward type guy. He can play center. He can play wing for you. Coming off a 22 goal, 17 assists, 39-point season there in Carolina. Again, no clue why this guy isn't signed, but if you're Calgary and you were so close to the playoffs a year ago, you need some scoring help. Listen, this is a guy that can help that out a little bit. Plenty of rumors concerning Nazem Kadri right now, and do they trade him? There's been a lot of speculation around him this offseason. I would get it if they moved him. He's 34 years old, has 4 years left at $7 million per, and just came off a career year in goal scoring with 35. So selling high would be absolutely, I think, the right thing to do, especially if you don't really think you're a cup team this year. Listen, maybe a return to Colorado would be in order. Colorado, I think, a team definitely going to be chasing the cup this season. It was very nice, though, to see Jonathan Huberdeau have such a bounce-back season for himself. 81 games for him, 28 goals, 34 assists for 62 points. We know how just awful it was when he first came over from Florida. Is his confidence all the way back? Can he repeat this type of year again? I think he's going to have to do that and more for this team to go anything. He's going to have to be one of the engines that drives the train here for them, especially with that number on his back, right? That big dollar number. But anyway, good to see him have a bounce back season. And, for my part, I hope he does it again. Love what they have in that. Love Dustin Wolf. Hard not to like this guy. Legitimate home run franchise goaltender. Yes, we know that goaltending year to year can be very, it can flip-flop on itself. You can have one great year, one bad year. But I think Wolf has all the intangibles to be a phenomenal franchise goalie. I do think they have that part figured out. So, yeah, I do have the Flames falling back a little bit this year. And I do think they probably do end up moving Kadri. There's just not enough big-time goal scorers out there. Somebody's going to want him, and somebody will overpay for him. And again, even with him, I kind of don't trust their ability to produce enough offense to keep up with the rest of the Pacific Division. Coming in at number 5, guys, we have got the Vancouver Canucks. 38, 30, and 14 a year ago, 90 points. All sorts of drama and chaos around this team, finishing 5th in the division. They were 23rd in goals for at 233 and 18th in goals against at 251. Amongst all the chaos, however, I think they had a pretty good offseason. They kept Brock Besser home. Probably the surprise of July. They get him on a 7-year, $7.25 million per season contract. And they did make another number of other depth signings throughout early July. Along with that, they make the trade for Evander Kane, so a good physical guy that can put the puck in the net a little bit. His big thing is, can he stay healthy? Can he stay healthy? He's had some pretty bad injuries over the years. But really, when it comes to the Canucks, this all comes back to Elias Pettersson, right? It just has to. It just has to. Along with him and the health of Thatcher Demko, two of the biggest players that are going to drive this train for the team. They highly depend on these guys. 64 games for Pettersson a year ago, 15, 30, and 45. I'm not saying anything out of bounds here. Just not good enough, man. That's just not good enough. He needs to be 35 to 40 goal scorer and a 90-plus point guy. I still believe he's got it in him. I just do. I don't know how they pull it out of him. They got JT Miller out of there because there was, that's where a lot of the chaos is coming from, some sort of angst between him and Pettersson. He's gone now. There's no reason why Elias can't step up and have a better season. He's going to need to. Man, if the wheels just fall off of this thing, do they try to find a trade partner? Do they have to eat some of that money to get him out of town if it's still not working? Is a change of scenery potentially necessary for him? I guess we'll see how the first few weeks of the season, first couple months go. Be something to watch, though. And for Thatcher Demko, you really hope the injuries are behind him. 2 of the last 3 seasons, he's really struggled to stay on the ice. And when he's healthy, he's one of the best goalies out there. And I feel like the team plays just a little bit differently. They can play a little more loose when he's out there because they know they've got good structure in net. You just hope he can stay healthy. You really, really do. They do have over $3 million left in cap space, so some small wiggle room to play around with if needed. And another big storyline to be watching, of course, is Quinn Hughes. 2 years left on his contract. Keep an eye on this one, guys, right? All sorts of news and speculation that eventually he'd like to play with his brothers out in New Jersey, perhaps. He is their captain. He is their all-world defenseman. If I'm Vancouver, I'm doing everything I can to get out in front of this, to lock this guy in. And after this year, he's kind of on a lame duck contract. So this is another one. If the wheels fall off this thing early, and if Quinn Hughes is starting to communicate to the organization, like, I'm not going to resign, there's going to be 31 other teams lining up to make their best offer to get this guy. I hope it works out. I like to see these guys stay where they started, and he's so important to that market, so important to the Vancouver Canucks. I hope they can figure out a way to keep him there, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, I did kind of struggle between Vancouver and Calgary. I kind of had them flip-flopped in my mind a little bit. If everything goes right for Vancouver, meaning Pettersson rebounds, a 90-plus point guy, you get 35 goals out of Jake DeBrusk. Besser's great. Quinn is great. There's enough defense, and Demko stays healthy. I could see them higher up this list and potentially fighting for and maybe earning a wildcard spot. I think the talent is in the room for all those things to happen, but we're just going to have to wait and see. My biggest riser this year, one of my darling teams for this season, is going to be at number 4, the Anaheim Ducks. Last season, finishing 6th place, 35, 37, and 10, 80-point season. They did improve by 21 points year over year, which was good enough to get Greg Cronin fired. 217 goals for, good for 30th, so not very good, and 261 goals against, tied for 22nd. So obviously a lot of room for improvement on those numbers. The best thing I can say about this team, though, is that they are just positioned perfectly. Like, if you want to draw up what a perfect situation looks like, it is the Anaheim Ducks right now. Young team with emerging star players. When you look at guys like Carlson, McTavish, Gauthier, I think all could be 30-plus goal scorers, if not this year, certainly very soon after. Along with that, you have over $21 million in cap space. So room to add just tons down the stretch for a playoff, run this year. And yes, I know McTavish still isn't signed. They're going to get that done. I'm not worried about that at all. But all sorts of room there. You got your goalie locked up, Lucas Dostel, and again, another young, great, I think, franchise level goaltender. So should be a lot of fun there. And they did stay fairly active here in July, adding some good key veterans, and Mikael Granlund from Dallas. Got him on a 3-year ×7. 45 points for him, 15 goals, 30 assists in 52 games. Of course, they make the trade earlier on for Chris Kreider from the New York Rangers. He's getting a much-needed fresh start, and I bet he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's got probably a big breath of fresh air, a little bit better weather for himself, and won't be shocked if he has just a tremendous season in that room and on the ice with those guys. Defensively, you're healthier now. You're heavier now, I should say, with Trouba out there, of course, another former New York Ranger. And you have an emerging blue line scorer in Jackson Lacombe, so he's been a fun one to watch so far, too. And then, by the way, let's just throw in a 3-time Stanley Cup winning head coach. I think that Quenneville is also, a lot like Kreider, going to have a big chip on his shoulder. I think he's just happy to be back in the league, and I think you're going to see just a phenomenal coaching performance out of Joel this season. I do think he is a major difference maker. I know I start off by saying I hated the fact they fired Greg Cronin, but I also get it. I get why they did. If they knew Joel Quenneville was waiting in the wings, hard not to make that change. But yeah, I think Anaheim's going to be upsetting the Western Conference a little bit this season. If they stay on the same trajectory from year over year, this team is going to be right there at the end, fighting for a playoff spot. And spoiler alert, I do have them as a wild card team this year. I do bet they spend some money and add some pieces at the deadline. And, again, because I think that Anaheim is now a destination where it hasn't been for quite some time. All right, guys, coming into number 3, we have got the Los Angeles Kings. So we go the other side of Southern California there, other side of the city. Of course, the Kings finishing second last season, 48, 25, and 9 for 105 points. Goals for, they were 249, good for 14th, and 203 against, good for second. So very good defensive team, as we know, major part of their identity. Kind of a ho-hum July 1st. Yeah, kind of a ho-hum July 1st. Kenny Holland getting hired there to run the organization. And yeah, he caught some criticism early on here with some of the moves that were made. They add Brian Dumoulin, of course, Bitter for Maine's Brian Dumoulin on defense, along with Cody Ceci. They'll probably make up a good third pairing for the group, but they do lose Gavrikov. Big loss there. He heads off to the New York Rangers. They do add Corey Perry and Armia from Montreal. Armia there from Montreal. And yeah, I mean, we'll just we'll see what that all looks like. I think defensively, I still like their culture. I still like the guys they have. They are getting a little bit of age behind them, but I think Holland's point was, okay, we lose Gavrikov, but we take that same money, we get 2 guys instead of 1. And Ceci and Dumoulin are both veteran guys who know how to play the game, and we'll see how it works out. Listen, I do think for LA Kings fans, and they're going to laugh at me as I say this, but I think patience is going to be a virtue for you guys. Holland is a Hall of Fame guy. He's a 4-time Stanley Cup winner. I think he's the perfect leader and the perfect guy to figure this out for this LA team. This has been a good team for a while. We know that. We know they continue to run into those first-round matchups with the Edmonton Oilers, but they've been a pretty darn good team. I think just a little bit of tweaking, and I think Kenny Holland's just the perfect guy. I was screaming about this, this spring. It's like, hey, the Bruins have an opportunity here, man. If they want to move on from Sweeney and go on and get Ken Holland, I think 99% of Bruins fans would have signed up for that. Goalie performance. I think this was a big surprise for me last year. I was the one guy that did not like LA last year. There were not many people that had them out of the playoffs. I was one of them, but Darcy Kempfer stepped up big time for this team. I just didn't see that coming. 50 games, 31, 11, and 7, had a 2.02 goals against average, best ever of his career, and a .922 save percentage. The team defensively, their shots allowed per game, 25.2. That was second in the league, and their PK was 8th at 81.4%. So again, big part of their identity here, their defense. I think that's going to continue to be a huge, huge key, and certainly going to help out their goaltending situation. I do think it's repeatable. I do think defense is also something that travels very well on the road. Now, something to be watching for this year, if you're a Kings fan, is Jim Hiller. Does he survive the season? Not Holland's hire. We know a lot of GMs, a lot of presidents like to bring in their own head coach. And he had nothing but good things to say, at the beginning when he was hired. Hiller was in the room. We all know that. But if there's a slow start here, especially given how the playoffs ended and how awful those decisions and choices were that Hiller made, don't be surprised if a change is coming. You got Pete DeBoer sitting out there, just sitting, waiting, drinking his iced tea on the beach right now, I'm sure. He's going to be the first guy hired, and there might be a race to get him. I kind of see once we get to the Central Division, we'll talk about Nashville. I think maybe him in Nashville, because I'm not sure where Brunette will finish up, but this is something to be watching for. DeBoer's got a ton of experience in the Pacific Division and out west, between San Jose and Vegas, and then of course Dallas in the Central. So something to keep an eye on for sure. Now, can they get through a first round series, and can they avoid a first round matchup with the Edmonton Oilers this season? I don't know how many years in a row has it been now. I've lost count. 3, 4, 5 in a row, something like that. It's in there someplace. And they had him dead to rights. Man, they had the Oilers dead to rights. Isn't it so funny that the Oilers were down to LA? LA had them beat Toronto the same way with Florida. I mean, if those two teams could have just held on to what they were doing, we could have had a whole different Stanley Cup matchup. Of course, neither of those things happened. I think maybe a goal for the LA Kings just needs to be win the division this year. Get out of that 2-3 hell that you've been in. Avoid Vegas and Edmonton in the first round. Yes, easier said than done, but I think that should be a goal. And yeah, this is probably going to be more for the same for the LA Kings this year. I just do. I think they're probably going to finish. I have them third. I think, 2, 3, and they're going to be matching up with Vegas or the Edmonton Oilers. They do have 6.7 million under the cap now. They project for over 37 million next season. Regardless of what happens this year, Kings fans, I think you're still going to be a good team. I think you're going to be a playoff team. I think you're going to probably be right there at a game 7 in the first round with whoever you play. Give Kenny Holland another offseason. We know what the free agent class could potentially look like going into next season. You're going to have a lot of money to spend. I trust Kenny Holland a lot, and it's going to be very, very curious to see what he can do going into not just this season, but into next summer. All right, number 2. Who do we have at number 2, everybody? We've got the defending Western Conference champion, the Edmonton Oilers. What do they have left? Third place finish a year ago, 48, 29, and 5. 101 points, of course, made a second straight run to the Cup final. 259 goals for, that was good for 11th. 235 goals against, that was good for 14th. Let's please avoid a slow start this year, Oilers. Let's just look at how they are from the start of the season to U.S. Thanksgiving. And let's look at the last 2 seasons. Going back to 23-24, from that start of the season to U.S. Thanksgiving, 5-12-1. That's what got their coach fired. This past year, yes, it was a little bit better, 10-9-2. So very average. And the first 7 games, they were 2-4-1 and were 0-3 to start the season. So it was really looking a little scary to open the season up. Additions for the team this year, of course, we know they've had some losses to the roster. Happens a lot to teams that go to Stanley Cups. They do add Mangiapane. They do add Lazar as well from, I think he was in New Jersey last. And then they do re-sign Trent Frederick. They make the Isaac Howard trade with Tampa Bay, so Howard's going to be part of the mix. So they've replaced some guys. Of course, Kane's going to be a loss, we'll just see if they have enough left in the tank. Of course, we know what their top end talents like. Those guys, Draisaitl, McDavid, are going to be phenomenal yet again. And will that be a distraction this season? The Connor McDavid extension, all sorts of chatter again, as I talked about in the last video or 2 videos ago, I think it was. 31 teams are just licking their chops, hoping that McDavid is sitting there July 1. I don't think he will be. I think they get this done. I think the important thing for the Edmonton Oilers is get it done now, get it done early. If McDavid is allowing for conversation to happen, won't it just make sense? Let's just get this thing done. We've got bigger things to worry about. We want to get back to a Stanley Cup and win it this time. Getting him done so we can just avoid any distraction, any drama around this. That's what I would do if I was running the Edmonton Oilers. But does any of it matter if you still have the same goaltending room? I mean, what kind of confidence do you have in the guys you have there? I truthfully thought that John Gibson from Anaheim would have been a phenomenal, perfect fit for this team. I'm sure they talked to him. I'm sure they talked to Anaheim about a trade. Of course, he's off to the Detroit Red Wings, so he's off the table. And of course, we got to talk about it because it's out there now with what the decision to happen in court in Canada. Carter Hart, former Philadelphia Flyers goaltender, is now out there and apparently, unless something changes, is eligible to come back. I have my thoughts on what happened up there. Not going to get into it right here. Regardless of where you land on it, the whole thing is just gross to me. But legally, they're off the hook, ready to go back to work. What team is going to take a chance on Carter Hart? And are you willing to put up with the potential, at least small firestorm that will follow it? I've said it before on this channel that much like with Joel Quenneville, in Anaheim, winning cures a lot of that. We tend to put our moral guidelines away when our team starts winning. We could be all rowdy and mad about things before that, but if someone comes in and helps my team win, most of us get very, very quiet very, very quickly. He might be considered. We'll see. And let's look at Boston right now. If the wheels fall off again for the Bruins, do the Oilers not come calling for Jeremy Swayman? Is that something that could potentially happen? I certainly hope that doesn't happen from my Bruins, but I know there's been a lot of rumors around that over the last year, and that might be a phone call that the Oilers end up making. But looking at Stuart Skinner, 26, 18, and 4 a year ago, 2.81 goals against and an 896 save percentage. Playoff numbers, 299 goals against and an 889 save percentage. So got a little bit, lower on those numbers. Of course, you're playing much better competition in the playoffs. And for Pickard, 22, 10, and 1, 2.71 goals against and a 900 save percentage. Of course, he did get into some playoff games, 2.85 goals against and an 886 save percentage. Oiler fans, I mean, how comfortable are you with this? You haven't made any moves to replace or to upgrade your net. Is this what you have? And is another cup run in you if that's what you have in net? They've proven they can get there with this group and with that net, but 3 in a row, especially without some more change, I think is a little bit unlikely. But again, when you have the 2 guys you have at the top of that lineup, I'm not willing to count them out. I think they have another really great, regular year. They'll be right there, I think, fighting for it at the end. Just maybe, play some hockey in October this year, guys. So, of course, we've already talked about 7 teams. That means we've got the Vegas Golden Knights as number 1 and winning the Pacific again this season. Of course, they won the division a year ago, 50, 22, and 10, 110 points, 274 goals for. That was good for 5th, and goals against 214, good for 3rd. So top 5 in both of those categories. And of course, they got the big fish again this year, Mitch Marner. And what impact will he have to this team? We know they had some issues with speed and scoring there in the playoffs, got a little bit exposed. Does Marner fix both of those? I think at least offensively, yes, he absolutely does. And what he does now is he creates just some amazing combinations. They've got 3 scoring lines on this team right now. You're going to look at least according to Puckpedia, looking at the depth chart, you've got Marner with Eichel and Barbashev as the first line, Carlson, Stone, Doriev as a second line, and then Hurdle with Smith and Howden. Now, Hurdle's a 30-goal guy. Howden's a 20-plus goal guy, and Smith can certainly put the puck in the net. You got 3 big-time scoring lines right there. So I think not just what Marner's going to do, when he's got the puck on his stick and when he's out there, but just how he can recreate and reshuffle these lines for Vegas right now, I think is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, listen, defensively, yes, big and physical. Are we a little bit worried about their overall defensive speed? Yes. Can they be beat a little bit defensively? I think with speed, yes. If you can't hit what you can't catch, and I think that's something, maybe a little bit of an Achilles heel. There's one little thing you can say about Vegas right now. I think that would be it. I think if you were talking to Bruce Cassidy, he would probably honestly tell you, yeah, we'd like to be a little faster defensively. Maybe they can overcome it. Maybe they have enough talent, and they do have a talented blue line. They've got some good, really good defensemen out there. Just do worry a little bit about that speed. Salary cap. Now, listen, they are over the cap right now by $7.64 million. I don't believe, though, that the Pietrangelo contract has been pulled out of that yet. Of course, we know Alex won't be playing. I think he's done for his career. Unfortunately, it just sucks. He's been such a good player. Always sad to see that. But he's got an $8.8 million cap hit over the next 2 seasons. I believe they can put that on LTIR. Should get them back in the black on those numbers. So should be good. Short list for Stanley Cup favorites. Yeah, I think for Vegas, absolutely. I believe so. I think they're going to be very, very hungry this year. I think Mitch Marner is going to be very, very hungry. And listen, you've got my absolute favorite coach on the planet in Bruce Cassidy, one of the best in the business. He'll have, I think, multiple cups before it's done, whether they win it this year or in the coming years. He's going to have 2, maybe 3 before it's all said and done. Well, guys, that's what we have for you today. Please don't forget to check out my latest video where I review my top 10 NHL storylines heading into this new season. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you already are subscribing to my channel, thank you. Absolutely appreciate that. And if you haven't done so, you want to stay up to date on all the upcoming shows, hit that subscribe button down below on your screen. Absolutely appreciate that. And until next time, everybody, be kind, show love, and God bless.